Hey, it's Vu, and I wanted to take a look at Perfecto's 4 in 21 performance against Astralis. And people are going to give him a ton of flack for this one, but I think there were some things that kind of went into it that weren't really his fault. And I think watching the demo back from his POV is really going to illuminate that. On the CT side is where I think people are going to give him a lot of blame, despite the fact that he went 1 in 14 on T side. T side train is what it is. I think CT side is where he's going to get, a lot of blame for things that maybe weren't in his control. I think Astralis really did try and pick on him, and it's not necessarily just, his own problem. Navi as a team play a certain way that does sometimes open themselves up to this type of issue. So, if I turn up the volume here real quick, we'll start out here on pistol round. And to begin with, he's going to head his way over to inner. And you're going to see a lot of the same here from Perfecto. Flash to peek. He doesn't get blinded. However, his teammate Boomich gets blinded, and Boomich can't really shoot back. Glaive hits a really nice shot there on Perfecto. Perfecto, of course, was in, the direct line that they're both swinging towards. Would be nice if he could have got over here, or, if he was behind this pillar like Boomich was hiding. However, it looks like that's something they've not really gone over, potentially, that type of play. Or maybe he just didn't have time to actually get back behind this corner. He seemed a little bit trapped out here in the open, and at that point, you're basically dead. Not really much you can do to prevent that type of thing. Following that, this round is going to be a force buy where he's on the Tech 9. A lot of what you'll see Perfecto's on the Galil here. A lot of what you're going to see Perfecto doing is he's kind of the supportive player, throwing a lot of utility, being near the back here for Navi. And so when things go poorly, when Electronic, when Boomich, Flamie and Simple don't get the frags, he's just kind of going to be left on an island. There's not much he can really do. And especially a lot of the time in this game, you'll see Astralis really just absolutely shut down a lot of Navi's plays. And that essentially doesn't give Perfecto much chance to get anything done. A lot of the time they'll know exactly where he's coming from. A lot of the time he's not going to have any utility. He might even be low on health, especially as a player that holds T-Con. A lot of the time it causes some issues in terms of his ability to actually get a decent job done. So here, he didn't catch the angle on Magisk, and then he shoots at him anyways, which could actually cause some problem. It could pull a potential inner player over on the rotate. It doesn't necessarily do so this time, but, taking a shot when someone's out of your screen, not the greatest, obviously. However, 15 seconds on the clock. He's just looking to plant the bomb here, and, there's nowhere really safe to plant it other than apparently nowhere, as Device is going to take him down. He had Simple near red train. He had Electronic at the back of the bomb train. You could argue maybe he could have planted here, but there's nothing really wrong with planting here to begin with. He had to avoid that molly either way, so can't really put that one on him, I don't think, in any way. And you're going to see this happen a good amount here for Perfecto. So going for the peak there out T-Con, that's what it's supposed to look like. The flash blows up just before Perfecto peeked out. You accomplish that by usually you have your first player through Z toss the flash and the second player toss the molly. That way those peaks off of the good spawns not going to work very well. And, he went for the jiggle one tap that Magisk will have a little bit of success with on their T side. But against Astralis, no shot. And now Perfecto really just kind of, he could be a bit more active, but how active do you want to be when you've got Electronic with the AK? You had Simple with the AK, I think, beforehand. You don't really want to give up any frags, and that's kind of the curse of being on Navi, right? You don't want to give up any free kills when you've got someone like Electronic and someone like Simple on your team that will get you frags. As long as you don't, fumble it, they'll get you kills and bring you into the round. The problem is, if you're just playing super passive, you end up in a lot of spots that you're going to see Perfecto end up in. Anyways, here in the 2v3, just pushing quickly down towards Hell, trying to create a bit of space, but the flank from dupreeh kills both him and Boomich. Not too much he could have done too much better there either, I think. That was a bit of a strategic thing. They were playing pretty heavy in T-Con there with a lot of players just looking for picks, and, Not much you can do if that goes poorly. There, Molly towards Sandwich, something he's going to be throwing quite a bit in this game. It's kind of designed to prevent what Glaive was doing, which was, the fast towards Olaf play. But here we've got Perfecto instantly naded down to 27 health. And pretty solid nade from Astralis into this cubby here. A lot of teams, start out at that back box like Perfecto did, but they end up, much further forward in that corner later because it's just one of the better corners to actually try and hold T-Con from. That ends up with him having 27 health. He's solo holding T-Con, not the most active of jobs unless they push in on you, which is something Astralis certainly do. Astralis are pretty active in attacking T-Con, and that's why you're seeing Perfecto very willing to drop a decent amount of utility to hold on to T-Con, use, multiple flashes, uses smoke sometimes, use all of that. But at this point, his team went inner. He's from T-Con, so he's the lurker. But they already had electronic in Ivy, and they used his pressure as part of the reason they went inner, which means Perfecto's not really going to be lurking T-Con. You can't have... Generally, you can't have two lurkers, so you just have Perfecto rotate his way back over to B. Never even really sees a player, I don't think, this round. Just took a bunch of nade damage. And then heading into the following, again, he's going to be holding on to T-Con. This time he takes the molly and then backs out of T-Con this time around to try and avoid any return fire, any nade damage that he might take. Nice little flash there just to apply some pressure. Assume that's to balance some strategies, stuff like that. Nice little pop flash there. That's maybe something you can steal from this if you're trying to improve that. Is a nice little flash to catch anybody peeking close, trying to take him down. Boomich goes for the re-molly, and then Perfecto with the spam through the smoke to, draw a little bit of eyes while Boomich makes his way out. Just looking for information here from T-Con. No information to be had. Goes back, throws the smoke towards ladder. That's, kind of his role here. Again, still watching the flank, allowing his teammates to come out of Ivy. It's going to be Simple and Electronic working their way out of Ivy. Boomich made his way down over towards Hell, and Perfecto's got the bomb here. His job is to try not to show the bomb if he can until they're committed, like they are now. And try not to die, right? So here, maybe could have tagged that shot onto Glaive, but you can't really blame him too much for not. And then he just gets double flashed as his team falls around him. Bit of a rough spot to be in, and there you see him secure his only kill of the half. I mean, you're left in a 1v5. They know generally where you're coming from. They saw you cross out with the bomb. Are you getting very many kills there? Probably not. Probably you're not getting a lot of kills there. And then this one, I'm going to slow-mo this one for you. Wait, is it coming? Is it coming? Oh, there you go. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. The 80 damage HE grenade. As if things, they haven't gone all that bad for Perfecto so far, but as if things aren't going to go bad enough for him in this half, that that had to be added on, insult to injury. So nice little utility set from Navi as they push in. Perfecto's got 18 health. There's really not all that much he can do. The resmoke there towards Z, I'm not sure if that's intentional or not. There's a gap between the back. You can still use this, something, not too many people seem to know. You can use this light to see when people cross out of Z. So you don't necessarily need the smoke to work perfectly and block off all of Z if you want to get a guy here to try and peer through it. But people are, also aware of that. Sometimes you see that spot getting spammed for that exact reason. But that didn't block off all of Z. Not that it's going to be consequential, but it didn't. Then here, just trying to hold the flank. Dupreeh really holding for a long time on that flank, forcing Perfecto to make the move. And I believe Dupreeh just spotted him go to upper as well. Perfecto has to get aggressive in that spot, and, it's just not going to go well. Again, he was left in a 1v3 with 20 health. It's really not, you're not winning that a very realistic portion of the time. Here, again, opening the round with the molly, and, by the fact that Navi like opening the round with that molly, it does kind of chain him to T-Con at the beginning of the round, which, is its own set of problems. Means that he's not really able to be anywhere else on the map or doing much else either. So here, He put presence in T-Con, used both of his flashes. He's just going to walk over towards inner, and this is a round where he actually has a chance to do something, right? He actually has a chance to push in. He's going to be running down along sidewalk here, a little bit tentative in the clearing. Could be a little bit more, you know, confident with that, perhaps. But Flamie will get a kill on the flank from dupreeh. Perfecto just covering here, trying to make sure nobody can push up. And a lot of the time what you're really trying to do here after he gets, you know, spammed essentially down to 32 health, a lot of what you're trying to do here is just control. Make sure you can survive as long as possible, especially with this super delayed flank from Electronic, this like very late lurk. Navi really just need to survive. The worst thing they could do is have everybody peek out here and die before the flank can come in. So Perfecto playing pretty safe, maybe overly safe, could take a slightly different angle, especially left side is covered. And he has this little adjustment of his crosshair there just as Glaive peeks out that does end up getting him. You know, he maybe could have found that kill if he hadn't had that. Unfortunately for him though, that little adjustment does end up costing him the kill. Then here you're gonna have another pretty funny round. So setting up in towards inner, maybe I'm thinking of the next round. Setting up in towards inner. Oh no, this is the round. So dupreeh on the lurk. Dupreeh's on the lurk here, boys. Dupreeh's going to go for the flank. He's going to spot one, line one up, and guess who he's going to line up? He's going to line up Perfecto. And he does, you know, pretty quickly get killed by Electronic, and they, you know, they intelligently make this one work. You know, they get that kill. They know that dupreeh was locking them into inner. So they immediately try and push over to outer, and you can see Astralis just wanted to note, like, you know, they're, as soon as that kill happens, they're already rotating as well. You know, that's the type of like crisp rotations you want to see in a team. No, I mean, you're expecting to see in a team like Astralis. They knew exactly what was up there. So here, same molly, gets naded to 80 off the bat, right again. Obviously, you know, he doesn't want to be in that spot too often. It looks like Astralis is nading that pretty consistently, but still sometimes they're going to nade deep T-Con as well. Then sometimes they're going to, you know, smoke off outside T-Con. So you can't just assume they're not going to renade the same spot, or you can't just assume they're going to renade the same spot over and over and over and over. Then here, you know, you do technically walk faster with your knife out. It wouldn't have been a bad idea. You know, they were on a bit of a time crunch. I can understand him walking with the knife out. I can understand him thinking those spots are clear if his team called it was clear. But once you're getting to that type of location, especially crossing over lower ramp, it wouldn't hurt, you know, to have your gun out. Definitely wouldn't hurt. But if he thinks things are clear and he's, you know, on a time crunch to get over towards upper, you can't really blame him too much for that. Then again, takes a chunky little 20 damage. Looks like he's the main player taking any nade damage on his entire team. Flamie's got 96. Perfecto on 82. He's taking the hit for the full team. And they're going to delay into an eventual inner take. It looks like they're trying to kind of isolate Xypnix here. But Xypnix is having a pretty good game. And here, he gets kind of trapped out. This is one of the rounds that I don't necessarily love. He gets out to here, he spots a couple of players, and then he just stops, crouches down, and stands still. I'm not a huge fan of the way this one played out. Think it definitely could have played out a little bit different. Of course, they did walk into a triple inner, and he spotted a couple players out. It's tough to really get much going, but I'm not sure crouching in the middle there is the play. Especially when he was already kind of hurt out. He could have tried to be a bit more aggressive to try and get something done. Obviously, he was trying to go for the Z player, but hard to say. And here, going to get in the smoke as it's dissipating. He gets a shot. It's not an easy shot by any means. dupreeh doesn't make it easy, so can't really blame him too much for not landing that shot. And at this point, I mean, they know he's T-Con. They're 2v5. This should really just about be, you know, the round over. He's maybe had a chance to grab a kill there, maybe, but you're not really winning that round. Here, nice little whiffed molly. I'm just going to assume that was whiffed. I think that's a molly meant to be thrown perhaps towards lower ramp. Some teams like the molly lower ramp, smoke upper. Some teams like the molly upper. But here down the ramp, he just gets railed. You know, you can run a little bit differently down this ramp. A lot of teams, what you see is the triple drop. You'll have 3 people line up along here and then all jump down to peak the angle at the same exact moment. Or you can have people run along this wall and strafe out. Certainly, you know, strafing down left to right down the ramp makes you a little bit harder to hit, but at the same time, the first player got by the angle. It's somewhat natural to think the second player may get by the angle as well. And I think the op was right next to him to trade. I think the op was just behind him. If the op was like beside him, probably gets the trade. Instead, the op was just behind, which means that the line he took where they didn't triple drop, they just tried to rush into the site as quickly as possible. As I said a couple rounds ago, you can't just assume necessarily they're going to nade the close corner every time. Otherwise, you end up like this. Sometimes there are just percentages. You just have to play the odds. Anyways, the last round kind of got the worst possible scenario, running straight down the ramp there. Zipnix gets the kill. I think Zipnix did actually get traded there, so, you know, maybe the opper was actually right behind him. Sometimes hard to quite remember exactly. But here, he's going to be throwing the fake towards inner. What? Nice little lag spike there. My game is frozen. All right. Let's restart this thing. That is like the first, I think that happened once before to me. Is my drive full? My drives are not full. So we just had a slight issue. This one's staying in the video. Fuck it, we'll do it live. All right, we'll do it live. You can skip ahead to after there's black screen. This should only be about 15 seconds. I'm going to call this a 15-seconder. Anyways, I think Zipnix did get traded in the round before, but here in that round, he's just essentially it's just a sacrificial lamb. I mean, he's through the utility out inner. They've been pressuring pretty heavily towards inner, showing, you know, a bit of their game plan. Not necessarily working out all that well for them. It is what it is. But, you know, this time around, they're going to throw a bit of a fake towards inner. He's going to be the guy throwing the fake. As per usual, he's not exactly set up in the best of positions all the time. He's just there not to not screw it up. And I don't think he's made too many glaring mistakes. I think he could have maybe a couple more kills, maybe a death less. But a lot of things going on here are really not up to him. So here, I believe this is the round. This should be the last round. Yeah, so the op was slightly delayed behind. They were just trying to rush in because they must have had to tell there was 5 inner or 5 outer, so they tried to rush in as quickly as possible. It's never going to hurt to jump down that ramp so you have a slightly better engagement. You don't just get railed like that, but sometimes things happen. Here, gets locked out of T-Con. He's going to end up going back over to inner. So the T-Con player ends up being the one that fakes inner. Of course, he's the only one with any reasonable amount of utility here, right? So if they are dedicated to the idea that they want to fake inner, this is, you know, the player that has to do it. Even if they would prefer that you don't rotate across the map like that. But the smoke, the flash, the spam almost feels like a bit of a dead giveaway because it's so obviously not something they typically would do. So they start rotating. Again, clock really low. Perfecto playing a bit slow here. He's kind of a bit slow to actually activate out ladder, and I think he just assumes that his team has the site under control. He's just thinking that they're going to have the free bomb plant, and he just needs to play the after plant and peek out off of contact. And, you know, especially if they're playing different angles where the contact is going to be in positions that, you know, are a little bit more in the open, that would work perfectly. However, because the contact was mid bomb train, and I believe it was simple there, tried to, you know, make a hero play with the bomb and take contact, and that kind of, you know, put a wrench in the round. I'm not sure you can necessarily predict that. I think, you know, playing for the after plant in that type of situation when you've got the bomb already, you know, essentially freely planted, if I'm remembering the round correctly, you got the bomb essentially freely planted. There's no reason to, you know, it's kind of revisionist history, you know. If he goes aggressive there and his team gets the free bomb plant, and he ends up dying, then they have to worry about ladder, and then they might lose the after plant because they have to worry about ladder that otherwise they'd win. I believe that was the round where Simple went for that peek with the bomb that he probably shouldn't have gone for. Here, I mean, he had a chance to grab a kill on the ladder player at the beginning of the round. That's, you know, one of the, you know, few instances where I think he's missed a kill. Again, it's not the easiest shot of all time, but you are playing pro CS, so a couple of shots in the back of someone does give you, you know, you definitely could have got that kill. Here, he's the first one out off of a flash. He's the one that gets killed. Electronic is there behind him. They've only got pistols, but, you know, Electronic is the one that's got a chance in that, and Perfecto a little bit less so. Then here, again, same molly. This time around, gets mollied out of T-Con. Astralis, the kings of utility, as per usual. I believe this is a back 6 smoke. Just drops down right below green train. So he's thrown that, ready to make his way over to outer. He's the sole T-Con player right now. It looks like Boomich is going to come back late with the bomb, but a lot of the time when you're the sole player on this, you know, on one outskirt of the map, you got to let the players that have numbers make contact. Your job on this side is a lot of the time just don't die, because if he dies, if you were to die, even with Boomich coming, if you were to die and a player gets into T-Con and plays it, then Boomich can't really get the bomb over unless he goes all the way around, or they retake T-Con, which is, you know, a bit of a disaster. So delaying for a while before pushing out, before, you know, making sure Electronic is ready out from ladder, or flamie is ready out from ladder. Boomich is close enough that, you know, a player can't take over T-Con. Comes out, he gets the dink. I mean, he only had a Galil there, so he can't always get all that much done with the Galil. Getting the dink is, you know, a pretty decent outcome, I think. And his teammate finished it off. So I think he more or less did his job there. Maybe he could have grabbed the kill, but, you know, you're going to win some gunfights. You're going to lose some gunfights, right? Then here, ready for the nade here to try and nade any sort of inner push. No inner push comes. Just waiting. Looks like he dropped the CZ over to Boomich, so again, he's kind of making the sacrifices to some extent for the team. The rotate back to outer. Not many places to really use that nade, so, you know, may as well throw it there. Maybe he could hold on to it, but, you know, any moment you hold on to your nade is a potential for you to die with the nade and never get a chance to throw it. So there is a bit of a way that plays out, that, you know, throwing the nade, slightly less chance of hitting the nade, but you throw it earlier, so you guarantee that you get it off. Then you average that out versus a nade. Maybe you throw half as often, but does double the damage. On average, it does the same amount of damage, right? Here, I mean, he's the inner player on train. You're not going to see all that much interesting stuff happen to the inner player on train. However, there are a couple of key rounds I want to point out. Now, this is something Perfecto does often. Usually when there's a second inner player, he doesn't actually buy fully up. He doesn't buy a molly here. He's just got the MP9 smoke flash. The theory, I believe, is that, you know, if they are rushing down lower ramp, the smoke is enough. He doesn't really need to necessarily drop down a molly the way you usually would, because if you smoke and play on the other side of it, you should be somewhat good to go. And I think he just wants to save up so he can get a legitimately good buy into the following round. You'll usually see him do this more so when they're playing a second player inner. You know, if he's going to push fast up ramp, he's not going to buy full utility, which is a play they'll make once in a while. But he will make this play on, you know, sometimes on these sorts of rounds as well. I'm not sure how sold I am on it, but, you know, obviously this is a play that I'm sure they've talked over with the coach, with, you know, the team, and it's a play they think is strong. So, you know, you can't necessarily put that directly on him, even if you think it's a misplay. So here, smoke in front, takes down the bomb planner. That's all he needs to do in this round. The spam through the smoke, bit risky. You know, potentially if he doesn't find that dink onto Zipnix, that round goes a little bit different, but I like the play in general up until the point where he peeks out and lets Magisk kill him with the Deeg. Certainly you You'd prefer that wouldn't happen. You'd prefer that wouldn't happen. That was the main, main mistake there. I think there's a couple of times he gets kind of isolated on inner, and I wanted to point out, specifically a few of these CT rounds. So here, they're on pistols. He's got the M4. Again, Astralis is going to be trying to make their way over to inner, and this is a round where I think people are going to look at this as, pretty big mistakes, but I think there's a little bit more to it. So this is the round specifically I wanted to take a look at, and kind of draw the eyes to some things that maybe you're not necessarily fully seeing or paying attention to in the live game. So take a second for the demo viewer to skip back around here and see how this round actually played out, because there is a kill here from Magisk. He doesn't even have the he doesn't have the best spawn. He's going to go for the peek out here. No flash. Instead, there's a nade, and he delayed for that nade to land, then went for the peek, and he grabs the kill on electronic. If you remember back to the way that worked for Perfecto, he got blinded up when he went for that. So there's like a risk reward. You can nade stack that instead of flashing it, but that has the potential to happen sometimes. So you have the higher potential of potentially grabbing a kill. However, you also have the potential that the guy dodges the nade, as it looks like they were well aware this is a play that Navi like to make, or maybe it was just luck. I don't know. It's a play a decent amount of teams like to make. Not to put that directly on Navi. Then Perfecto with the M4 here, because he saved that saved 1700 last round. He could afford the M4, can play a little bit further back on the bomb site. But a lot of the time what happens with Navi, and this is a 4v5, right? So this is something that's going to happen often, where you're going to have to prioritize one side, because the way train typically works, you usually play 4 outer to begin with, you hold the push, and then you end up playing 2 inner, 3 outer in a bunch of different types of setups later on in the round, because one player simply can't hold on to inner. But once you lose a player, you either play 2 outer, which is pretty weak on outer, or you play 3 outer, 1 inner, which means you're very weak on inner. And, it's a bit of a gamble to go either direction for both teams. But here, Perfecto's completely isolated. He's got no support essentially anywhere. And he's going to spot device with the scout in upper here. And a lot of the time what you'll see is that scout comes upper, and the scout might post on Z, right? And then the pistols might bust out lower ramp at the same time, right? That's fairly standard way of potentially playing that. There's plenty of ways to play it, but that's one of the ways you might see a team play it. So he spots the scout, doesn't see anyone else, and he's going to go back over to lower ramp to check it. Are they busting down lower ramp? Once he sees no one there, this is where things go awry, right? Once he sees no one lower ramp, what's the play from there? Do you molly lower ramp, then come up around and play around this side? It's a bit odd, right? You fight over here, but they're swinging out upper, and then he tries to back up to back off, because it gets real uncomfortable when you're fighting, this angle, close, over here. And he tries to back up, but he just essentially puts himself in the middle of the open, and it's essentially an unwinnable engagement from there, right? So the play here, spot a player, then check lower, is okay. It's not a big deal. Certainly, spotting lower, then mollying this, and then, allowing a rotate to potentially cover sidewalk wouldn't be crazy either. However, the rotates were so far off that he was really on his own. You're on your own like that, you end up having to, you end up being in some really awkward spots, and you can't really blame him for not holding there. Now, he probably should be able to grab a kill, but even if he usually will grab a kill, occasionally you're going to end up in spots like that where you really just get... You see a scout upper. You think the scout upper indicates that they're going to bust out lower with the scout posted upper. You look lower, nobody's there, and then you look back and they're all busted out upper. That's going to happen sometimes. It's going to happen sometimes. But I wanted to highlight that round specifically because, he does die there. He doesn't get a kill there on a rifle round against pistols, but at the same time, Astralis had a nice little play, and he was completely isolated on inner. He could have, in fact, used some of his utility a little bit earlier to try and delay for time for his team to potentially bring a second player over, but it looks like they were content gamble stacking. Here, Doesn't get a kill with the deagle. You know, this is a sufficiently decent off angle that he probably should get a kill here more often than not. But I believe they bring this round their way anyways. Oh, they don't. Okay. Certainly, if he had picked up a deagle kill there, I think he probably would have ended up winning his team the round. There's a good chance he would have. So, you know, that's a round where he had a pretty decent off angle. He got a couple of shots. It looks like Astralis was, you know, pretty quick on the trade. They had 2 players there. The most he's probably going to pick up is 1. But certainly, if he had picked up 1, it would have been pretty good for their odds. Then here, this isn't really a relevant round. He gets the Zeus. Not sure if he gets a kill here with it or not. What happens is immediately here. So right at the beginning of the round here, he's got 4,200. And 4,200 is just enough to buy a FAMAS, body armor, and full utility, including a Molotov. But he's going to open up with head armor, then a FAMAS, and then he's not going to have enough for a Molotov. I'm not sure if this is a misbuy. It's definitely a misbuy in the terms of it's not the buy that you want because, you know, typically you'll see, you know, any inner player, but, you know, you'll see Perfecto for sure buy a Molotov almost every time. You know, essentially the main thing you need as an inner player is you definitely need a Molotov because if they make this play and you don't have a Molotov, you essentially lose the round a large percentage of the time. Now, if you smoke off lower, that can help as well, but they can flash through it. Instead, he nades lower, gets pushed back into the middle of the train here, and this is a spot he falls back to a lot. It looks like they were pretty ready for him to actually have fallen back in there. So he doesn't get very much damage. He doesn't get a kill from a straight lower rush, and his team ends up getting forced back into the save. So here, this is another round, like, if he had a Molotov, like when you have a Molotov, you can drop the molly down and then you can play around the smoke because they have to smoke out that molly, right? The problem with smoking is sometimes, you know, they're going to be through the smoke before it even blooms. You can end up getting blinded through the smoke as well. People come through and trade. It gets a little bit awkward. So you throw down a molly and then they have to smoke out the molly. The smoke lands instantly. They're, you know, you catch them as they're coming through from one of these angles and you pretty much guaranteed get 2 kills. Or they smoke it out. You can also toss a nade maybe and you can come back to an angle like this. A lot of people like this angle. Perfecto likes this angle. It's fine. The problem is he didn't have a freaking Molotov, which means that round went very poorly. And, you know, I'd say, you know, I'm not sure. You know, it's very Astralis-esque to have found the round where he doesn't have a molly, and that's the round you rush in. Or was it calculated? I don't necessarily think so. I think usually he's going to have a molly there. They were just trying to catch Perfecto because Navi had been, you know, they've been kind of attacked on outer a decent amount. They oftentimes do leave Perfecto on a pretty decent island on those rounds where they're not on a full buy to begin with. They didn't have perfect money. They didn't have all the money they would have wanted on that round. So, you know, on those rounds especially, Navi do sometimes have a tendency to just leave Perfecto completely alone, where, you know, Simple's nowhere near Z, and, you know, while being nowhere near Z, he's just kind of, you know, Perfecto's just on his own. I would guess that was more of the reason that Astralis went inner. Unfortunately for Perfecto, that's also the round that he didn't have a Molotov. And that means that Astralis took that one down, and they took down the win. So Perfecto goes 4-21. How bad was the game? Hard to say. I mean, it wasn't the best game he's ever played, I'm sure. Definitely a few things went wrong, but I think, you know, I think he didn't do quite as bad as the frag count might necessarily suggest to you. Anyways, thanks for watching. Catch you next time.